Welcome to this week's weekly Sizzle. I'm Nick Powills, and we're joined this week by the great Sean Fitzgerald. It's always an honor to have you here, Sean. Thanks for joining us.
I'm glad to be here. I'm looking forward to this conversation.
As you can see, today we are down to one microphone, so I will awkwardly hold this in Sean's face as we continue to talk about what's happening in the week of franchising. So let's start off with the first story, and it's my column this week about when is the right time to sell your brand. Sean, it seems like there's this influx of capital in the franchise industry right now where all the private equity firms are willing to buy pretty much anything. So at what point should you as a franchisor be willing to sell your brand?
Yeah, it's a really interesting time in franchising that I've never seen before, where you have a lot of private equity buying up franchises and franchisors, I should say. So the question, when is a good time to start talking to those private equity groups? I mean, ideally, it's really looking at when your financials are strong, I think, and when you can get the most valuation for your business. So if you're a startup brand and the revenue may not be there at that time, obviously they're looking at it from a multiple of earnings. So you might want to get to a point where you have very strong financials, you have a really strong growth rate, because they're going to look at, okay, how quickly is this brand growing, how quickly can we ramp up revenue, and then look at a multiple of earnings based upon that. So sometimes it could be a little bit too early, and you might want to sit until you have the good financials that can really claim a good kind of price point for a sale, striking a sale point. So.
Yeah, if I look at the clients that we represent, I'm hearing a few different stories. One is we have about 100 units. I'm not sure if we're done growing, so maybe we should hold off for a while and wait until the price gets jacked up a little bit more. We have some startup brands, one that I'm thinking of in particular that needs capital infusion. So they're at this point where they're like, well, 100% ownership in a brand that only has 20 units isn't great, but if I own 40% of a brand that has 1,000 units, it's going to be a much greater amount of money. I think one challenge that at least I see with our clients, and it's a challenge that only one category faces, is that of founders. That founders seem a little bit more reluctant to let go of their baby. So what I'm seeing now today, and Rourke Capital's been one as an example that has done a very nice job at this model of we're going to buy you, but we're going to keep the team intact, and we'll ride it out like with Wingstop, and that obviously just went public. But founders are very reluctant to give the keys to their car. They feel like it's their baby. That's good and bad. The bad is that you probably overvalue what you currently have, and you could probably be much more financially sound if you let an infusion come in. So I'm seeing this influx of capital that comes from private equity that says, hey, we don't want you out. Either we want to be 50-50 partners with you, but we feel that your vision is what's going to fuel this. Now, those brands that don't have a founder involved anymore, they're just looking to turn this over. That's what the leadership team is put in place for, is they want to create the biggest return on investment.
You raised a great point. Is you look at acquisitions as 100% acquisition, and you're trying to kind of exit strategy. You're starting to see a lot of minority investment, or you still have an investment, but the investment firm has a controlling interest, and so you really need to do due diligence on the private equity firm that you're bringing in. I mean, there's some very reputable ones like Rourke that look at it as, hey, we're not coming in to tell you what to do. We want to continue that great success, and we want to be a part of it. But there's a lot of private equity firms that are going to come in, and they're going to look at it as strictly a financial flip. They're looking to move it and flip it in the next 3 to 5 years. So they may not care about your culture, they may not care about your people, and those are the type of things you want to take in consideration when you're talking to these private equity groups, as what their long-term strategy is and your involvement that's going to be in it.
So before we leave this topic, let's say that you're a prospective franchisee and you're exploring this emerging brand. Should you be asking a question to the franchisor? Do you have any plans to sell? Could that affect franchisees in any negative way, especially if you're in the early part of the process of joining the brand?
It's a great question for franchisees to ask. Now, I could tell you that most franchisors, whether they're even considering it or even talking to private equity, are going to say, no, we're not in a hurry to sell or bring on investment. That's usually kind of very kept quiet. And a lot of times the controlling owner of a franchisor may just be entertaining the idea, and then all of a sudden a great opportunity comes and it just happens. The real question, and it is unnerving for franchisees when a franchisor is no longer held by the founding entity. Mm-hmm. It could be really good for the franchisor because now sometimes changes will be made that can be great enhancements to the brand, but it also can, it depends on what the equity group wants to do with that brand. So.
Sure. So franchisees that are in the system, should they be asking how much pay do I get when this thing sells? Should a franchisee make money if the franchisor is?
I think it's a very positive thing when you look at a brand, because when a brand is acquired, that means someone sees a lot of value in the growth and potential. So as a franchisee, it's a great sign. Someone's going to come in and they're going to look at to help invest in infrastructure and take it to the next level. They typically bring in people that have experience in franchising and growing it. So they're looking to invest it, they're looking to grow it, and they bring in a lot of great resources and tools that help make those brands better. So it is unnerving when a new group comes in, but in the long run, I think most of the time it's very beneficial. I think the unnerving aspect is you're used to having the founder, and you could call the founder if you're a franchisee, and especially the ones that have been around for a long time. When you don't have that anymore, it could be a little bit unnerving, but long-term benefit, I think, is definitely a plus.
Should those that are exploring franchise opportunities, should they be looking for brands that were recently acquired because they're going to get infused with capital, and that means they're going to be in better position, which means their investment should be... I mean, we have NRD Capital that the announcement of their acquisition of Frischs comes through. Does that mean that if I'm looking at a brand in that category, does Frischs go to the top of my list because I know that brand is going to be infused with a better leadership team and a better growth strategy?
Yeah, I think that's a great sign. So here's a brand that obviously has been a legacy brand that's been around for a long time. Now it's going to be infused with capital, a new group of people, a new fresh set of eyes that's really going to take it to the next level. So yeah, I think when a brand is acquired and that news goes out, that means someone sees something and they're going to put a lot of positive things into that brand that could really grow it to the next level. So.
Should I, as a current franchisee, let's say I'm in a Frischs, we'll stay with that brand, is now the time for me to sell because of how hot the brand just got? Do I look to expand my territory now before I exit? What do I do if I'm currently in that model?
That's an interesting question. It really depends on how you see your future. If you are one of these legacy owners and you're complacent and you're looking to, not change much or do things differently, this could be a time to exit because now the brand is looking to take it to the next level. Now, if you're an owner of that franchise system and you've been starving for something new to help revitalize this brand, you're going to be very happy with the future. So it really depends on where you're at in your life cycle as a franchisee. It really, you have to look at that perspective and say, okay, hey, we're relaunching and we're taking it to the next level. Do you have the energy, the drive to do so? If not, then you're going to probably be frustrated in the system, and then the franchisor is probably going to be frustrated with you, which leads to not a great relationship, and it's time to kind of maybe look at another opportunity.
Sure. Yeah, and with the swing in the economy, I have a feeling this is going to be a topic we're going to continuously cover on 1851. It seems like private equity is very interested in franchise brands for scale. Continuing on, one topic that's going to continue to get hot this month on 1851 is our Franchise Development Website Awards. And this isn't necessarily for you, the franchise prospect, in that the awards are not out there for you to get the knowledge, but the way that we were evaluating them, it was myself, Sean, Johnny, who's on the 1851 team, and then FranNet and FranConnect that decided to put together a voting structure to try to give some insight into these websites. Sean, your overall thoughts on going through? We had about 40 that were qualified for the judging. What were your overall thoughts on websites?
It was really a neat experience because when we were talking earlier, it was looking at it from different perspectives. So we had other companies that looked at it, tech companies and a broker company, and looking at it from their eyes versus our eyes. I looked at it as, okay, it's not just the aesthetics of the site, it's how effective the site works. So does it grab attention of a potential candidate? Does it get them the information that they want? Is the ability for them to get additional information there and then get them engaged with the brand? Because we've always talked about, and many subjects we talk about here, is that ghost lead, that lead that comes to your site, is interested but isn't really committed to get into a long, in-depth conversation or have the phone ring and have someone call them. So I looked at it from that perspective is if someone lands on that site, how is it engaging enough for me to take action? And that's what I kind of went at from that perspective.
Yeah, Keith Gerson from Fran Connect and I had a long conversation this morning. It's interesting to get different viewpoints based on different experience levels. Me, Johnny, Sean, Todd Bingham from FranNet, and Keith Gerson each have different levels of experience in franchising and franchise development, and we're all looking at it in a different way. Some things or opinions that came out, Keith and I talked a lot about the forms. Some are very simple, that says just give me your name, your phone number, and your email address. And his take was, hey, look, it's about getting conversions onto the development site. If you're about getting conversions, and that's what you need to push for. My take has been, well, let's put in a few stop gaps in there to try to eliminate some of the clutter and give a little bit hoop for them to jump through so that we can say this person is a little bit more qualified than the other. We saw some that said, hey, what's the best time to call me? Was it morning, afternoon, nighttime, which I thought that was an interesting approach. One of the sites put on there, what's your immigration status, which means that they were going for a class of franchisee. I found that to be interesting. Mobile ready, most of them are there, and we know that Google has made it a fact that they're going to rank you better if you're mobile friendly. I still feel personally, and my opinion is mine, and Sean's is his, and Keith's is his, and Todd's is his. I feel that if I'm going to buy my next big thing, my next big moment, I mean, this is a giant life decision to own a franchise. I'm probably not going to give you my contact information through mobile unless all I'm looking for is for you to email me a brochure. I feel, and this is going to continue to be a hot topic, especially as these awards get announced in the next few weeks, the topic of what should I be doing from a best practice on my development site to make sure that I'm getting the right user in there. I think the forums, we should be asking the prospect, do you want a brochure? Do you want us to text you? We should be taking another step. But I'll say overall, the biggest miss by franchise brands is explaining the why. Everyone talks about support and training and blah, 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 blah. It's all the same. If you're going to stand out and if you really want to intercept someone on your franchise development site, you better explain why you're different and why this brand is now. So I think it was a very interesting process for us to go through. It's our first annual awards. You're going to get some good data out of it. And you, the franchisee, we are looking out for you because you are the buyer. We want to make sure that these franchisors are giving you the right information so that you can make an educated decision whether or not this brand is correct.
What are some of the best practices or real simple things that people can do that you saw on this exercise? And for me, it was, like you said, you're talking about mobile ready. I mean, I think now you got to look at the next progression of that. If your website's not responsive or mobile ready, you're shooting yourself in the foot. Today, and the statistics that we see with a lot of our brands is 60% or more of their traffic to the development site is on mobile devices. Mm-hmm. So having, the next step is, okay, making it easy for them to get additional information. Yep. So if you have a long form, you may be mobile ready, but you have a long form on your franchise development site that they have to fill all the information that's required before they get any contact, and they're on a mobile device. It's very unlikely it's going to happen. So you're going to be able to get them information in a way that they can get into the process, get engaged, and maybe come back later. So very simple forms for mobile devices. I believe that most people are going to find your brand, and when they do find it on a mobile device, they're going to look for some information, and they're going to come back at a later point. So if you have it, like you said, email address, get them a PDF download, then they can go back home over the weekend or in the evening and get online and really research you. I think that's more of the progression that we're seeing.
Yeah, so we see phone numbers. There's phone numbers, and I saw this a few times. If you hate forms, call us. I'm sure it's different per generation. I'm not going to pick up the phone. I would rather just shoot you an email or a note that says, I'm looking for a little bit more information. Tell me how much it costs. Give me a little bit more data. I need to go do my own homework. That's me as a buyer, and it's different for everyone. Perhaps a baby boomer is more likely to pick up the phone and call when it says, I don't want to fill out the form, because technology annoys them. It's interesting, though, if 60% of the traffic is mobile, then the job of this is to talk to the buyer when they're on the train or they're stuck in traffic, which you shouldn't be on their phone when you're stuck in traffic, but you're going to do it anyway. But why is there not a feature on any of these sites, not one of them, that says text X to this number and we will send you your information, or text X and it will automatically send us your contact information? If it's on mobile and we're trying to make this easy and we know that 60% of the users, and why are we not speaking to it? And I'll tell you, it's because the franchise industry as a whole, there are some that are being innovative in their development site, but it's way behind the curve. You look at some of these apps that exist, and the applications on their sites are so easy. It's click connect with Facebook and automatically all the information comes in. Franchise industry has not pushed itself hard enough to say, let's be innovative. And that is the fault of the suppliers, because you as a franchisor, you're looking to the supplier to say, give us the best practices. Now, I'll say from experience, oftentimes franchisors have their own opinion. They want this to be done this way. And even though you can tell them a million times that this is the best practice, they're going to tell you that, no, this is the way that you do it. Well, I think it's about time that we as an industry start setting the best practices. This is a very important step in that direction. Whether it's private equity, which we started the weekly Sizzle off with, or it's website development, I don't feel there's enough content out there for you, the franchisor, you, the buyer, to have the answer to these questions. That's what we're trying to do with 1851, is help give you some kind of content, whether that's video or it's text or it's photos or it's infographics, that give you, the buyer, and you, the franchisor, enough information to have the best practices. Sean's opinion, my opinion, will never be just the only opinion. A best practice is when it's a collaboration of multiple ideas that come together and say, this is what we think is best. So these franchise awards, we're trying to give you some of that data on the franchise sites, and obviously in this video, we're trying to give you some insight into when is the right time to buy, or sell, whether you're on the franchisee or franchisor side. There's a lot of content on the site this week. We have a story about weight loss, which we were trying to put more of a human interest twist. We have a story about Lane Fisher and Jenna Bailey and Todd Bingham as power people in franchising. There's a great amount of content on there. Thank you to our 65,000 readers from last month. We appreciate you taking a look at the magazine, and we will see you next week. Take care. Hey, we're here with the Weekly Sizzle, and I'm here with Sean Fitzpatrick. Sean, how's it going today?
It's going great. It's Fitzgerald.
Today, speaking of weight loss, how do you feel about nachos?
I love nachos.